Now, there's been another wave of Russian air attacks on Ukraine overnight, with at least 14 people killed. Most died in attacks on a town, Dobropillya, in the Donetsk region. Another 3 died in drone attacks in the Kharkiv region. These attacks came hours after the United States confirmed that it had limited Ukraine's access to commercial satellite imagery, as well as pausing military and intelligence aid. While airstrikes across Ukraine have intensified in the past week, and they coincide with the United States increasing pressure on President Zelensky to sign a peace deal with Russia by denying Ukraine access to those commercial satellite images. Pictures taken by the US firm Maxar are no longer available to Kyiv. They were used to track Russian troop movements and assess damage from airstrikes. Washington had already cut off military aid and intelligence sharing. The United States is due to hold direct talks with Ukraine in Saudi Arabia next week on ending the war that followed Russia's full-scale invasion. Well, our Ukraine correspondent James Waterhouse has this update.
It was a night where we saw widespread Russian drone attacks, as Ukraine often does see, and it's an eastern town called Dobropillya, which you've seen there, where residential buildings were struck by several drones, it seems. At least 12 people have been killed, we understand. It sits in a region gradually being swallowed by advancing Russian forces. And we've also seen a targeting of a city in the northeastern Kharkiv region. But as ever, it doesn't stop there. We've seen energy facilities targeted in the south, as well as in the central provinces of Ukraine. And it is this mutual pausing of targeting infrastructure in this way, which Ukraine has suggested could be part of an initial ceasefire agreement. But Russia has firmly rejected that so far. Across the border in western Russia, in the Krasnodar Krai region, officials there say they've intercepted 31 Ukrainian drones going the other way as they attempted to target a oil refinery there. So in short, yes, it has been quite a night for Ukraine.
What do you think the impact will be of this US decision to now deny access to commercial satellite imagery?
In short, it makes Ukraine's ability to defend itself all the more difficult. In the words of one Ukrainian officer this morning, we're fighting blind in some areas. Maxar satellite imagery, American intelligence, it's all central to how Ukraine detects incoming drones, but picks up the gathering of invading Russian forces, how it conducts its own offensive operations, how it launches long-range missile strikes. This has been an unraveling of its relationship with Washington, which has directly hampered its ability to both fight and defend. And there has nothing new that has been announced by the Trump administration, which is slowing down Russia's advances. I mean, Donald Trump yesterday even suggested he was understanding why Vladimir Putin was upping his attacks in this way. He did threaten Moscow with large-scale sanctions and tariffs after the bombardment we've seen. But then in the same breath, he suggested that Russia would be easier to deal with in a ceasefire negotiation than Ukraine, despite the latter, in his words, not holding any of the cards.
And James, is there any sense of what Ukraine is expecting out of these talks that are going to take place in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I think in an immediate sense, they would like America to restore its support in some way. And I think that's far from guaranteed. I think America would like America to unlock that military aid, those armoured vehicles, the ammunition that is partly sitting in depots now in neighbouring Poland. It would like its intelligence to be shared once more, and it would more longer term like America to say, right, now that you have come to the table, now that you maybe have signed this minerals deal, giving us access to billions of dollars of your minerals in the future, we will now start to provide you with security guarantees, some kind of military promise that we would be here, we would step in if Russia tried to invade again, which is a very real fear here, in the future. That is Ukraine's dream, but at the moment, President Zelensky is running out of political road. He's simply just having to engage, and that's certainly what his European allies want him to do.
James Waterhouse there speaking to Nikki within the past hour. Well, as James was mentioning there, the US has increased pressure on Ukraine to reach a possible peace deal with Russia by withdrawing access to American satellite imagery, which of course was being used by Kyiv to track Russian troop movements. President Trump also said that he's finding it more difficult to deal with Ukraine than with Russia. Our North America editor Sarah Smith has more.
Donald Trump believes that from behind his Oval Office desk, he alone can end war and make peace in Ukraine. He was asked if he believes Vladimir Putin is serious about peace.
I believe him. I think we're doing very well with Russia. But right now they're bombing the hell out of Ukraine. And I'm finding it more difficult, frankly, to deal with Ukraine. And they don't have the cards. They don't have the cards. As you know, we're meeting in Saudi Arabia on sometime next week, early. And we're talking, would I find that in terms of getting a final settlement, it may be easier dealing with Russia, which is surprising because they have all the cards. I mean,
he consistently sounds more favourable to the aggressor, Russia, and its authoritarian leader.
He wants to end the war. He wants to end it. And I think he's going to be more generous than he has to be. And that's pretty good. That means a lot of good things.
As Ukraine is pounded, it's still deprived of American military assistance and intelligence sharing. No word on when it might be restored. In his nightly address, President Zelensky says he does want to end the war.
Ukraine is ready for peace as soon as possible. We have proposed concrete steps. And every day, new Russian strikes and reality itself prove that it's Russia that must be forced into peace, into stopping the war, into real diplomacy.
High-level US and Russian officials have already shared talks in Saudi Arabia. That was one more thing that seemed to favour the Russian side. Next week, Ukraine gets its seat at this table to meet American diplomats and discuss what they might accept in a peace deal. Sarah Smith, BBC News, Washington.
And we have a live page running on this story with the very latest on Ukraine, those developments overnight, the Russian strike on the town in Donetsk amongst numerous strikes overnight. You'll find much more on the BBC News website. You can also access the very latest on our app as well.